Welcome back, everybody, to the professional interview series. Today we have Dr. Schwab with us from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Did I say that right?
Yes.
That is a mouthful, and I know every time I do it, I'm worried about getting it wrong.
It
Uh,
is.
how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, just it's a great. We've made it right now, but hopefully the sun will come out later. So I'm good.
What it's beautiful. It's probably in the mid 60s here, but the sun is out. I think later today, after I get done with work, I'm gonna go try to get on the lake and go do some fishing.
Nice.
So, it's summer. I don't know if it's summer, but it's summertime for me. So,
Yeah.
um, so anyway, so you're there at Cal Poly. Can you tell us just briefly what you do, what you teach?
Sure, yeah. So I'm an associate professor here in the Department of Experience Industry Management. I've been here, I think this is my 8th year. And when I started, we were the Department of Recreation, Parks, and Tourism Administration. And so I was hired to teach in the general recreation core. So I teach our 101 class, our basic programming class, our evaluation and assessment methods class, and then sometimes senior project. And then I've also taught like little specialty classes here and there. I took students to the Dominican Republic for a sustainability class. I'd worked with students in Kenya for a summer on like doing a basic business plan for a place. Yeah, and I've helped out our camping and an outdoor leadership class as well. I'm not certified in that kind of stuff, but I go on as like an assistant teacher or something. So yeah.
Do you so just because I'm jealous, really, does Cal Poly support a lot of those study abroad adventures that you're going on?
Yeah, they try to. Yeah, we have a big international center, and then our students are really interested in it. They are hard to fill. I think I had a really hard time. I had 14 students in the first class, and the second one only 6. And then my coworker did a Costa Rica class that only had 6. So that's kind of we lose a little bit of money in that, but it's still we try and support it and get out, yeah, and do more international stuff. Actually, my coworker and I taught in China 2 years ago, right before the pandemic in 2019. The university in China paid for us to come there and teach. So that was really exciting too.
I'm gonna have to ask you more about that here in a little bit. Like I said, because I'm jealous more than anything. Well, let's start off. Where are you originally from? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, sure. I'm originally from Harrisonburg, Virginia. It's a small town in the Shenandoah Valley. Yeah, back east. And I was there for like 23 or so years. So I went to James Madison University, which is the university there in my hometown. And I was a journalism major initially, or actually I wanted to do art history and French, and then realized I would never get a paying job in a museum or something. So I switched to journalism. So it was called Media Arts and Design. So that was my undergrad. And the funny thing, and so then after college, I got a job for 2 years as a reporter at the Daily Progress in Charlottesville, Virginia. So I've always spent my whole life like writing, and I was always in the school newspaper and the yearbook, and just writing and reading have always been things that I loved. And the funny thing was that when I was in high school, my friend and I were like quiet little mousy students, but we didn't like anything the high school administration was doing. So one week we decided to publish an underground newspaper and like snuck into school early and put this like gossip rag and critical of the administration stuff, shoved it in lockers and everything. And by the end of the day, we were found out and got suspended for 2 days. That always made for a good interview story when I would go to interview to be a reporter. So like, my start was in underground newspapers. So yeah, so I did that. And then I didn't want to be a reporter forever because the pay was terrible and the hours are terrible. You know, you're working until 9 o'clock at night, going to board meetings, then filing stories and stuff. And so I got a job as a like a social worker in an early intervention program. And so I was basically like a case manager for toddlers. It was children 0 to 3 who have disabilities, and we helped coordinate their in-home services of physical therapy, speech therapy, and occupational therapy. And so it was there that I really saw like the power of play and the power of family recreation at changing people's lives. Because all the play for toddlers, all therapies for toddlers are play based, because you're not going to get a kid to like a toddler to do like repetition, like barbells or something. So it's all play-based therapy. I think that really resonated with me because in my childhood, we didn't do a lot of like big recreation, but we spent a lot of time just like playing kickball in the backyard or biking in a parking lot just down the block from the street, or just walking the dog together. And all those kind of like small family recreation activities were things that I felt bonded me to my parents and to my siblings. We're all 4 years apart, 4 of us. So it's a little harder to find commonalities, but we could find the commonalities in playing in the treehouse or going for a nature walk or riding bikes in circles or whatever. So that's where I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead too far in that story, but that's once I had that social work job and kind of realized that my love for recreation and how much I realized recreation could change people's lives, I decided, okay, this is what I want my master's or what I want my next degree to be in. So I really wanted a career change out of journalism. And I didn't want to spend my life in a cubicle. So I thought I will do something where I can be in a rec center or in a YMCA, helping people, families, children use recreation to create meaningful experiences and change and improve their lives. So,
So,
yeah,
yeah, what in the list of four, where are you at in that list?
I'm the oldest. Yeah. So,
Okay. Uh,
yeah, the boss's
so
one. Yeah.
all the younger kids got to get to thank you because you were. They say that like the oldest kid, the parents are like learning to parent, right?
Yes. Yeah. I had like a curfew, the earliest curfew, the least amount of allowance, the most restrictions on driving, everything. Yeah. And then they slowly loosened up. And the youngest is a boy. So he was like, playing flashlight tag out till midnight, like chasing squirrels, like things I was never. So,
Well, so, what's interesting is I had a that really was my start in this world as well as working with youth. I worked for the Boys and Girls Clubs of America for a while, for a number of years, and that's where I got kind of started. When you decided you wanted to go back or back to school and go into that world, where did you end up going to school, and how'd you make that decision?
yeah, sure. Yeah, so I realized I wanted, yeah, a more meaningful career or just, yeah, something to do with people and youth in the outdoors. And I think I was just casting around looking for like outward bound classes or NOLS courses or just anything that would like jumpstart me into this kind of outdoor recreation world. And I landed on the NOLS, the National Outdoor Leadership School, does a bunch of outdoor classes, and then their accrediting body is the University of Utah. So I started looking at the University of Utah's programs and realized that they had a great master's and PhD in recreation parks and tourism, and that several of the faculty there were really involved in research on youth development. So Karen Paisley had written the book on benefits-based programming with Larry Allen from Clemson. So I just started, I didn't even know this was a field. Like we're such a discovery major, I didn't know. I just thought I was just going to be a science teacher or something was the best I could do. I didn't know recreation parks and tourism was a field. So I'm always telling people about it and trying to get that word out there more that it is something you can actually choose to major in. Yeah, so it was a discovery major for me. And so I just happened upon it at the University of Utah. And I realized it's a great 2-year program. It wasn't that expensive. Living out west was something I was married at the time, so something we always wanted to do was to live out west and get out of Virginia for a little while. And I thought the people who were there, Karen Paisley, Jim Sidthorpe, Mary Wills, they'd all done a lot of research in youth development. So I respected their brains and their research. And I thought Utah would be a great place to live and continue to play outside. So we picked up and sold a house in Virginia and moved to Utah. So
And that's in Salt Lake City, right?
yeah, in Salt Lake City, yes. Yeah. So then
So
my master's program, yeah, 2 years there. So we're good.
So you made the transition there. What kind of stuff what kind of stuff did you study, and how did that kind of push you into the next phase?
Yeah. So I went in as a master's and I just wanted to do a master's and then get back out and probably move back east was my thought to like run a YMCA or run a boys and girls program or some kind of after school youth programming. So I studied, our basic core was a management class, a feasibility studies class, a evaluation and assessments, a bunch of computer application stuff. And then I think I took a youth development class, maybe a health behavior change class, and some few other things. But then I also at the same time worked in after school recreation. So I wanted a part-time job and I wanted to get more experience in the field. So I hadn't had that much. And I worked at an after school rec program in downtown Salt Lake City, which was great. I had a great boss and a lot of great kids. And the kids are so funny. Like the way teenagers just like tumble in and they had to wear uniforms. So they were always like taking off their uniforms and putting on these different like costumes of their teenage social identity, whatever that was for that month. Like the girls would go through their goth phase and their hippie phase. And they were a lot of fun to watch. But I also realized that by even just from 3 to 5 o'clock, by 5 o'clock, I was exhausted and like so impatient. And I just wanted to go home and like eat potato chips and relax. And like the noise of kids in my head was driving me crazy. So I kind of realized, okay, maybe I don't want to spend my life in a YMCA. I love kids, I love watching them, but do I really want to spend 40 hours a week in this kind of, I don't know, just to me the physical environment was too much, too noisy, and too much. So I realized maybe that wasn't where my strengths would lie. But I was starting to realize along those 2 years of my master's program of really reading research and understanding how research is done and how you can study outcomes through research and then improve and change programs, that I started to realize maybe I want to go on and get my PhD and work to then create curriculum based on sound research and then evaluate and assess curriculum or policies using research to change the world. So maybe that's more where my strengths lie, or sitting and doing reading and writing and research to improve programs rather than being in there leading the programs. So I went back to talk to some of the professors at the University of Utah that I loved and said, what is a PhD going to look like? What is it going to do for me? And they were all excited and supportive. And so I applied, and so I got to stay on at the U to stay for the next like 4 years or so, and working under Dan Dustin and the same group of people that I did my master's with, and finally got my PhD 4 years later, I guess, yeah. And during that year PhD, you have a tuition waiver, but you get a small stipend and you teach. So then I started teaching undergrads, and I realized I really liked working with undergrads a lot more because you all come in and you sit in the class and you're energetic and excited and ask questions and talk, and then you go away. You're like, "And this is just my noise in my head kind of abilities." That was the right amount. Like I could do projects with students on a Saturday morning, and then we all go back and I have my quiet time. I sound like such a grumpy old lady, but it's just I do small doses of people. I'm much more of an introvert. So yeah. So then when I was at U, I taught. So I taught in the programming class, or co-taught, or assisted teaching the programming class, the evaluation assessment class, an intro, 101 class. Did some research with faculty, and then also worked for a year at Head Start as their grant writer. And so again, I got to see recreation and programs in action, changing people's lives, and got to contribute to that by writing grants to hopefully get more money to do those programs. So that's kind of my grad school, PhD years.
And I think it's important because what's funny is like we talked about similar revelation is I too, working with the youth and I loved them. Um, thought it was great. Later, I worked at a rec center and had less youth involvement. Was doing a little bit more with the adult recreation stuff. And like you, I realized that I can be energetic for a short amount of time. And even now in class, like an hour or so. Right now, my classes are stacked a little bit. Like Tuesday, Thursday, I have 9, 10, and then 1 o'clock, and I need that lunch break just to be like, all right, I can do this.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
But it does. It takes a lot of energy, and I think it takes the right person with the right personality to really be in that youth world with a lot of that energy. And I'm not it, right?
Yeah, I just ran out of patience. Like I would want to be my best mentor self or talk through problems, but I just was like the firefighter is like, I don't care. Well, just go. I'm like, I can't do that.
But something you said, I think it's really cool too, and it's watching those folks, those young adults, youth, teens, whatever ages, watching their transition of their personalities, who they are, development, and all that, and just smiling. And some of them you're like, oh man, I remember being that way. Some of them are like, I don't understand.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Cool.
so,
It's a cool
so you
program.
just, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, it was a neat program. I was really respectful of the director of that program. He brought in a lot of different classes. So we had like a breakdancing class and computer programming and a bike repair and skateboard building, and it's just an amazing amount of opportunities for those kids. So that
Yeah,
was
some
fun.
lucky kiddos. And,
Yeah.
and I've only visited Salt Lake City, I think twice total. Once for a conference. Well, I think they were both for conferences, and I really like Salt Lake City. It's uh, both times I was downtown and got to walk around and all that, and I really enjoyed my time there. So again, I'm a little bit jealous. You have to spend a good amount of time there out west in Salt Lake City. So what during your PhD, what kind of, you said you taught classes. What kind of other things did you do to prepare yourself for your next transition out of your PhD?
Okay, good question. So I was really fortunate to be able to work with Dan Dustin. He came in as our new department chair when I started my PhD, and he also loves to write. So like he doesn't even gather much data. He just writes conceptual stuff. And so I just got to sit kind of with him, and we would talk and think through ideas, or think through how do we apply this, the Kaplan's restoration theory to youth in Utah or something. So he would always take some bigger idea or theory, and then we'd write some shorter piece or a practitioner piece, or he'd write something longer for Skole. And he wrote like 85% of it because he could churn something out in 2 days. And I would come in and like contribute my like one paragraph or a few little edits or comments or something. But I got to watch him and how well he took larger ideas and applied them to the parks and recreation setting, which is a lot of what our field is, I think, taking sociology and psychology and health behavior change theories and then applying them or using them in our specific settings and our specific life space. And so watching him do that, reading and writing was great, just great for me to work on my writing and improving my communication skills. And then we also presented a lot of that stuff at conferences. So I was really a nervous public speaker at first. And I think I've gotten a lot more comfortable over the years. So we just went to like the state conferences in St. George, Utah, and out in Reno a couple of times. And came to California a few times to present. And that's how I met the folks at Cal Poly. So that helped me just get that connection. But it really also helped my resume to have a lot more short articles on it, even if they're non-peer review, just practitioner pieces, just getting my name and writing experience and presenting experience out there was really helpful. So, and you always had some new topic you wanted to explore. So I learned a lot about a lot of different things. So I feel like I'm a generalist. So I have a lot of, I have a variety of knowledge in my CV. If you look at it, as all kinds of different topics are in there. So
Sure.
I haven't followed like the traditional path of being like focused on one specific thing for my entire career. I've been able to dabble in a lot of stuff, which has been interesting and exciting for me. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, I think dabbling's fun. Like I was talking to somebody the other day about I had an opportunity to help a friend with some roller derby research.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, and not something I thought I would ever do or be helping with, but it's been a lot of fun
Yeah.
actually learning that world. I had a friend a long time ago that was in it, and I supported her. Like we went to a couple of matches or bouts or whatever they're called, right? But anyway, it was
Sure.
just
Yeah.
one of those things that I got involved in. I was like, how did this happen, right?
Right.
I go from like doing human dimensions of bear interactions and wildlife and whatnot, and then all of a sudden roller derby.
Right. Right.
But I think that's the fun of it, right? You get to dabble and learn new stuff.
Yeah.
And
Working with good people matters too. Like
right,
just working with good colleagues who motivate and inspire you and push you, or to have someone you're accountable to, whether it's not quite your topic or not. Just working with great people makes a huge difference in any career. Yeah.
yeah, it keeps you motivated to keep moving on. So you're getting toward the end of your PhD, time of your doctorate program. What was your line of thinking as far as like your next step professionally? Were you thinking faculty role? Were you thinking go back into the professional world, and why and how?
Right. Okay. Yeah. I think one of our big discussions in grad school was, did you want to go into a research-focused university or more of a teaching-focused university? And I think I decided I wanted to work with students and I wanted to help cultivate and be part of the facilitating of our future leaders in our field, our future of helping work with students and hoping to educate and inspire and motivate them to be great representatives of our field in the field later on. So I wanted to go to more of a teaching university. And I was adjunct for a year and a half or something in Utah, I think, or 2 years in Utah. And so again, I taught like in our core classes, and I taught a small class on family leisure at one point. Um, yeah, and was there for 2 years. But then it's not really recommended to stay in the university where you got your PhD. They recommend going out and spreading your intellectual seeds other places, and that university should bring in new people. So it got a little messy politically there as well. But anyway, so the job at Cal Poly came up, and I had met some of these folks, and I knew they have an emphasis. They want us to do research, but it is some people get mad when I say this, but it is more of a teaching focused university. So we're supposed to be with our students. Our student evaluations matter a lot. Our presence in the classroom matters. How much we're doing in community matters. Cal Poly has the motto is learn by doing. And so every class is supposed to have a component of hands-on doing something. So whether that's your own research project or something in the field, they're always supposed to be an active learning situation. And then they focus on something called the teacher scholar model. So you're not just like doing research in your ivory tower by yourself, but they encourage us to do research with students. And we don't have a master's program, but we have some great undergrads. So every summer there's been a little bit of funding to hire a student and gather even just a small amount of data, or just do some small projects that we've presented at conferences. And so I really liked that they encouraged research, but it wasn't publish or perish. And that they encouraged engaging with students, who I love students' energy and enthusiasm and ideas. And yeah, so Cal Poly seemed like a great fit. I knew that I liked the department chair. I liked the faculty. Like I actually had fun on my interview. Like we laughed a lot and joked. I thought that was a good sign. So, and then San Luis Obispo is, central coast of California. It's not a bad place to live. It's not that ugly. I can hike, a mile from my house in 3 different directions. We can be on the beach in 20 minutes. Can go to, there's the beaches have different flavors to them. There's wineries, wine tasting, there's road biking, there's the Eastern Sierras are gorgeous for backpacking and hiking. So over the summer, I get out there a lot. So it's a pretty fun place to live. Other than the wildfires, that's the one kind of downside.
So on the do the wildfires get close to y'all?
They don't get close to us, but the smoke blows down here. So like last September, we had a week of just of the worst air quality ever. Like, so it wasn't safe to do anything outside, and everyone just holed up in their house and had fans running or whatever. So it's mostly the smoke damage.
So to back up, I don't want I had to ask about the wildfires. To back up a little bit, when you were looking at stepping into the position you are now, did you apply to a lot of other places, or what? And I'm speaking a little bit from my experience and some other folks that I know, right? Like, you're about to graduate, you're looking at all these, you're looking at options, and sometimes there's a lot of opportunity as far as job market goes, and sometimes there's not. And, so I guess what I'm asking is, what is your philosophy as far as that process? Do you just apply everywhere and see what happens? Or were you a little bit more picky because you had a little bit more foundation there in Salt Lake City?
Right. Yeah. I think the year before I finished my PhD, there were a lot of jobs open, and I did try to apply to a bunch just because I was like scared about not getting anything. But I hadn't even like gathered data yet for my dissertation, so I didn't get interviews in any of those. So I just realized that timing is really important in academia. It's got to be the right position open the right year when you're ready to move. Um, but I think it is good to get your name out there. So I always encourage my students to put in an application to multiple places if it's not going to be too much work, because you never know when somebody else is going to drop out or when somebody's going to go on maternity leave and they need a 6-month position to fill in. Or one of the jobs I got in college was just supposed to be a 3-month special funded position, but it turned into full time. And I did a great job, and so they kept me on. So I encourage students to apply multiple places again if it's not going to be too onerous, because you never know who's going to drop out. And I guess that sounds bad, but I've had that happen to a lot of students. Like, I was second place for an internship, and then Lucy quit because she got a better job in Alaska, so now I'm it. Like, so that's kind of what's happened for them. Um, for me, I only think I applied to 2 or 3 places the year that I had actually applied. So I was being geographically picky. So I think I applied to something in Washington State and California. And then at the time, like there was a job in Illinois open. Maybe my ex-husband was like, "Absolutely not. We're not moving to Illinois. No way. Like, we're not going from Salt Lake City." We loved it, Utah and the outdoors. So, but so I applied here, and I was very fortunate to get this job, and so it's just been great since then. And they were super supportive. So I made tenure, 2 years ago.
Oh,
I got a
congrats.
year of support coming in. Yeah, thanks. That was great. So it was, yeah, that's been good. So now I'm still trying to publish so I can go up for full in a couple of years, but we'll get there. So,
Yeah. So in your role now, so you talked a little bit about some of your travel courses. You talked, labeled yourself as a journalist, kind of. So what kind of, and you talked about the courses you teach, but so maybe a good question here would be like, when you think about these courses and you talk about like this project-based learning or this learning by doing, uh, so what's your philosophy in getting those projects aligned with like curricular goals, and how do you get those students out in that project or out in the service learning project or whatever it may be?
yeah. You mean like here in town, or like things that have gone international?
Either one, your
Okay.
choice.
Okay. Um, a lot of the international opportunities were just things that kind of came our way. Like there was just randomly a donor who wanted us to go to Kenya and help make it write a business plan. And so I guess 2 things I've learned are that I'm able to say yes to a lot of stuff because I don't have kids. And then I got divorced. So I was just like me over the summer. So I'm like, where do I want to go? Sure. They want to pay me to go to Nairobi. I'm on it. So I've had a lot of opportunities to just say yes to stuff. I had a coworker who got a grant to study charity participants on a 3-day bike ride. And so we spent 3 days gathering data in Southern California. So that was just something that I could say yes to because I had kind of that time and flexibility and freedom. So being able to say yes really helps. And then as far as like students and aligning stuff with curricular goals, I guess are a lot of our outcomes are kind of broad, or some of our outcomes are kind of broad that students will be able to program and evaluate for a diverse range of people or something. Is like one of the NRPA standards. They're pretty broad, I feel like, those accreditation ones. So as long as I meet those, that they're programming for diverse groups, for example, or that they are learning to evaluate and assess a program, I can kind of get anything to align. So when we went to the Dominican Republic, they did like an assessment of a commercial resort and then kind of an assessment of a eco lodge. And that was like you're either way, you're doing a critical assessment of something in our field. So that serves our curricular goals. That helps.
Yeah, absolutely. So, uh, before I move on to like the big question at the end, I always ask if you were doing something else, money wasn't an option, uh, you know, you know, for whatever reason, you could pick your dream job and you could do it right now. What would be
Yeah.
your dream job?
Oh my gosh, that's hard. Because I do love what I do, so I'm kind of lucky.
Sure, yeah.
But I think a different dream job right now would be being a park ranger or being like an interpreter or an educator in the national parks. They just, or even in local or state parks. I love being outside, so that's personally selfish. But then I see a lot of people outdoors not doing leave no trace. Something I just keep noticing right now. Like there's just a lot of orange peels and dog poop bags and speakers blaring and drones and all kinds of things that are ruining the experience as I think the experience should be. So maybe that's a little selfish, but um, yeah, just not understanding how their actions affect other people's experience outside. And so I think I would love to be an outdoor educator. But yeah, if I could choose a different career, maybe an outdoor educator, NOLS teacher slash park ranger slash local guide and just teach and educate people about the outdoors. So
Yeah, so still connected to education in just a different way.
yeah, yeah, yes.
Well, the the last question I have for you is, if somebody's watching this, a young professional student, whatever it may be, and maybe they're a journalism major, maybe they spent some time in some different careers early on, like you did, working with youth or whatnot. If they're looking at saying, like that's something I'm interested in, or I may be following a similar career path. Do you have any like words of wisdom or tidbits of advice for somebody considering that route?
For getting into recreation, for getting into
Getting
parks.
into recreation, maybe considering the faculty route, or maybe considering some of the different things that you've done.
Yeah, okay, sure. I think just starting to get involved, whatever that looks like. I was fortunate to go to a lot of conferences, and I know we don't have those right now, but that going to conferences when you're younger helped me see what professionals were doing, because like people would present on LA County Parks and Rec is doing this, and I could see, is that something I want to work in? Do I want to do policy for a county area? Or you could go to faculty presentations and see what research they're doing, and that might help you think, do I want to do research like this person or with this person? So getting out there and getting involved in professional associations, networking associations, and asking questions, doing informational interviews, maybe, and just seeing if those are different directions that interest you. Um, yeah, I think didn't we meet like on the Parks and Recreation magazine board or something like
Yeah,
young? Yeah, it was like
was it?
ages ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, even being involved with that and meeting other people, reading other people's stories, because we had other young professionals write articles for the Parks and Rec magazine, I think. It's just seeing what's out there. So just getting involved and dabbling and asking questions. I think people are happy to do informational interviews, especially now that everyone's so comfortable with Zoom. So I've sent a couple of my students to go do informational interviews when they're considering a master's program. It's not hard anymore to pop on a Zoom for 20 minutes and talk to somebody in Taipei about their tourism program. So there's a lot of ways to get out there and ask questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if we met, like if it was what year it was, because it's been a while.
Yeah.
Because I want to say it was probably like 2009, 10, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I graduated in 2013. So it was before that. So yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Man, it's a few years ago. Yeah, you
That
talk,
old.
what's that?
I said I don't want to feel that old, but yeah, I
Right.
am
Well,
definitely.
I I heard this from somewhere, and I don't know where it was, but it was something along the lines of, don't be afraid or don't feel bad about getting older. There's a lot of people don't get that opportunity,
That's
and
true. But
yeah,
yeah.
so and I kind of do the same thing. I'm like, then I try to, keep that in mind. Well, Dr. Schwab, Keri, thank you so much for taking your time today to share your story. And what I'll do, if it's okay with you, is I'll put your LinkedIn, the link to your LinkedIn in the show description, show notes, or whatever they call them. And then if anybody has any questions, they can reach out and connect. And one thing I like about our profession is something you said. Everybody's willing to take 20, 30 minutes. So I sincerely appreciate you hopping on here with me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. And I hope
Yeah.
everyone enjoys this and yeah, have a great class.
And absolutely have a fun summer. If I don't talk to you before then, and then enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much.